Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Adoption UK's webinar this evening. We're joined by Yoni, Joe and Keeley Craw. We're going to be talking about how to build relationships through play. It is a webinar this evening, so you can't be seen or heard, so don't worry about that, what's going on with you. We'll put it on the website on the members resources area, so it's all recorded. You can watch it, days later at your leisure, whatever suits. Please feel free to use the chat and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So if you have any questions as Keeley and Yoni are talking, just pop them in and I'll ask them at the end, and it'll all be anonymised. So don't worry about, I won't use your name or anything. So I'll hand over to you guys if that's okay. Thanks really much for joining us. We've got a really good crowd on tonight. So yeah, I'll hand over to you. I'll turn my camera off, but I'll still be here should you need me.
Thanks very much, Joe. Right, I'll introduce myself first. I'm Yoni Joe, and I'm an adopted person, adopted adult, and I'm also an adopter myself of two girls aged 18 and 19. And I just wanted to sort of give you a bit of context as to what we're doing and why we're doing it, if that's okay. So I was born in Southampton to a woman who was the third generation of girls brought up in foster care and in residential care. My father, I believe, or she believed, should I say, was an American seaman. And I went through a number of foster care households before moving to Kath and Ron, who became my respite carers and then subsequently my adopters. And fortunately for me, they took me on and I never left. But I guess what I felt was that they gave me a lot of opportunities that I certainly wouldn't have had if I'd have stayed in my birth home. But I was also known as a black child and I didn't really interact with any other black children in the area where I lived. And so I stood out. And I was bullied in school a bit, certainly towards my the secondary school. I would certainly experience quite a bit of bullying and struggled to have a positive image of myself. And I came to learn really from that experience that treating people fairly was really, regardless of the colour of their skin, their sexuality, their religion, of their abilities, was an absolute fundamental for me that I wanted to live by throughout the rest of my life. And so I went on to qualify as a social worker and have worked with children in the care system. And I've worked with foster carers and adopters for the past 30 years, actually. And I've been determined to give children and young people as many opportunities, regardless of their birth circumstances. So my most recent role, which is working with care leavers, I've seen the impact of being in residential care, and that's just made me really, really even more passionate about adoption and how to make adoptions more successful and give adopters the resources and the information that they need to really feel confident. And so out of all of that experience, a bit of a potted history of myself, my professional life, I went on to adopt two girls myself. One's at university in the second year, who's 19, and one's 18 in college. With my partner, my civil partner, we have had quite a few challenges and quite a few dramas, as I'm sure all of you can sympathise with. And I don't think that we were as prepared as we should have been or could have been. And so for all of those reasons, I've been pleased to develop Diversity Adopt, which provides adoption coaching and training, and also to work with Keeley. So that's my introduction, and I'll pass you on to Keeley, who will introduce herself too.
Hi folks, thanks Yoni, that's a really nice introduction. Yeah, I think it's really inspiring actually for all the parents listening tonight to think that cycles can be broken. So over this your history of families, previous family members also been in foster care, that you broke that cycle and actually became a social worker, and you became an adoptive parent yourself. That's really inspiring to see that those cycles can be broken, and you can do so much positive things. What a difference adoption can make.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but my name is Keeley Craw. I have been a child therapist for nearly 14 years now, and I also have 2 very small children. I'm the other end of the scale from Yoni. My children are 1 and 4. They're biological children. So you know, I've worked with children for about 25 years. 14 of those were working with children therapeutically, and a lot of my work has actually been with children who have been in foster care or with adoptive families or in kinship care, or children who were identified at risk. And there's been such a great privilege in that, actually, because as a therapist, people are telling you things and showing you sides of themselves that they've often not shown other people. And I think particularly for children, I just feel like it's always been a real privilege of mine, and I've never let that go, of what children can show me. So a lot of these children who, especially those in residential care, they could be pulling cast iron radiators off walls and yanking sinks out of the wall. But when I got them in the therapy room, what I saw wasn't that child. What I saw was a very fragile child, and they were really, they felt safe enough to express their emotions and bare their souls to me, and that's always just been just a huge privilege, and when the children have been able to kind of make leaps in their understanding and development within themselves, it's been absolute. So they're always cloud 9 moments for me. And this work I'm doing with Yoni is just like a real thrill to me, because we all want to kind of break those cycles for children, and we're all here because we're all passionate about making children's lives better. And the course Yoni and I have developed, is here to support adoptive and foster parents in enabling them, giving you tools to be able to do that in a way that's very accessible for children, and in a way that can feel very safe for them. So if I just start a little bit, just talking about play and relationship, and I'm just going to start and just do it very briefly, because I know that you're probably all quite well versed with attachment styles, but for those of you who aren't, maybe you're just kind of like still new to this, there are 4 attachment styles. So secure, that's the one we're all aiming for, where we're biological parents, that's what we're aiming to give our children from birth, and as adoptive parents, that's what you're aiming to give to your children. So they will have come with some kind of insecure attachment, whether that's ambivalent. So maybe they've had parents who have mental illness, or they've been in very coercive situations, and the ambivalence comes from not knowing where they stand with their parents. The goalposts are constantly changing. They're there to kind of please the parents, but it makes for a very confusing and very uncertain style of being parented for a child. And then there's the anxious attachment. So this could be where a child can never be quite sure whether their needs are going to be met. One day maybe they are, maybe another day they're not. Maybe they're met, maybe their expressions for need are met aggressively or negligently. And so for these children, what they often learn is to tuck away those emotions and try not to express their needs, so they can be quiet, independent. They don't really want to kind of rely on anyone else. And obviously within that, emotional intimacy is really difficult. And then there's disorganized attachments, and this is where parents are a real source of fear. So particularly here, maybe the children have experienced physical or emotional abuse, maybe they've witnessed a lot of domestic violence. And one of the very saddest things about disorganized attachment is when children experience things like this, they don't see the parents as monstrous, they internalize it and think of themselves, they're the monstrous one. You know, and children here, you know, will struggle to kind of form relationships. They can do it superficially, so you know that they can be very good actually at kind of getting people on board because they need to, because they have to survive. They need, you know, they need to be fed. They need the safety that a proximity to another adult gives them sometimes. But to actually form a meaningful relationship, you know, is kind of off the cards for them. And then you can find that also children have a combination of these attachment styles too. So they might be anxious and disorganized, or anxious and ambivalent. But what we're aiming for is a secure attachment. You know, that's one of the reasons that, you know, we become parents, is that we want to, you know, have children in our lives, and we want to do the best for them. And so to develop a good attachment, an attachment isn't a bond, is the connection and the relationship style a child makes to an adult, and a bond is the connection an adult makes to the child. So when you're wanting to develop your bond with your child and give them the opportunity to develop a secure attachment, it's about doing things such as responding to their needs. You know, I think that's quite a challenge sometimes. I think often in Western culture, you know, we're always very quick to try and make a child independent and kind of, you know, not kind of respond too quickly because they've got to learn how to sort themselves out. But, you know, it's really important to respond to a child's needs all the time and consistently so. We don't need to leave them just to struggle with bedtime by themselves, you know, or, you know, if they're hurt, you know, just kind of manage it themselves. You know, especially the children who are in your care, you know, have had to do a lot of that kind of self-survival, and so now it's time to show them what a good adult is like, what a good parent is like, by being responsive to their needs. And part of that is listening and acknowledging their emotions. You know, and sometimes that can be a real challenge because you know, sometimes the way these children are expressing their kind of emotions and their needs can actually be done in quite aggressive ways. It can feel very distressing. And so when we're feeling that kind of sense of distress, it's about tapping into that and kind of recognizing that that's the distress that the child is feeling, and it can be very uncomfortable to kind of sit with them and witness. But, you know, there's ways we can, you know, and we need to listen and acknowledge those emotions. Obviously, children need a place in the boundaries, especially children who've lived in very chaotic circumstances or have moved placement to placement where rules kind of and boundaries change all the time. So it's about bringing a consistency. Obviously, you know, not to be too rigid with it. We need to be flexible at times. And part of that can be done by providing clear and consistent routines. Again, you know, a little bit of give and take sometimes, but, you know, it's really important for children to kind of know where they're standing, for them to have a good sense of what's going to happen in the day. And again, as I just kind of touched on, to understand that their behaviours are an expression of their emotional needs, you know, is a real important part of kind of developing secure attachment with children. So that's just like a quite a brief whiz through of that. And I just want to kind of put that just to one side in a moment, and then I'm going to flip to play now, and then I'm going to try and pull it together at the end. That's the plan. So I just really wanted to kind of focus for a moment on play and why it's important, because again, I think in society we just think of play, it's something, it's, you know, and play is without purpose, but just because it's really without purpose doesn't mean it's actually not of value. It's actually of huge value, especially for children. You know, there are many facets to play that contribute to a child's physical development, the language development, their emotional development, their social skill development. So it's actually a huge thing, but often it's kind of pushed to the sidelines. It's childish, you know, where often children get to a certain age, we're trying to nudge them out of playing, but play is something new. We should never actually give up. Play is important for all of us, and over time, as we develop, play might look different, but actually it's really important that we always keep play and playful aspects in our own lives. It's really good for our own mental health and well-being as well. So it's really important. Now, I just wanted to just use as an example of the importance of play, and it is on the more extreme end of the spectrum, for example, and I'm not by any means suggesting that, you know, all our children will turn out like this if they're deprived of play. But there's a great, and originally he started off as a doctor and then went into psychiatry, and now he runs the National Institute for Play in America. I think it's in California. A man called Stuart Brown, and a long time ago in the mid-60s, he and a team of people were asked to do like a thorough study on a man called Charles Whitman, who had kind of committed one of the very first kind of mass murders in America. He murdered his mom and his wife, and then he went on like another 3-hour kind of like rampage and murdered, you know, I think about 17 or 26 other people, a lot, you know, more than enough. And so they really studied this guy, every kind of aspect of his life. And what lots of different professionals from lots of different fields all kind of came to the conclusion with was that there was a real play deficit in this man's life. So there was other things too, you know, the father was very controlling of the wife, so there's a lot of coercive control there, you know, but this Charles Whitman as a boy was really, you know, discouraged from play, very actively discouraged from play. He wasn't allowed friends around to his house. He wasn't allowed to go out to play. He wasn't allowed to play in the home. And what they kind of concluded was that the play deficit actually was like a huge motivation for the killing that took place. And after that, Brown kind of studied about 26 other mass murderers and other people who had been involved in drink driving incidents that had involved in death. And every time, you know, it came, this play deficit, you know, within these people's histories had come through very strongly. So I'm not suggesting by any means that if you have a child who's been deprived of play, that is their pathway in life. But it's just really important just to show actually how important play can be, you know, and in the most extreme of circumstances, what can happen, you know. But, you know, play is really an important tool for children and adults in learning negotiation, about learning self-regulation. So that's about how children manage their emotions. You might find that your children kind of maybe get excited very quickly and they go up and up and up and up, and it's really hard to kind of bring them down, or they get upset about something and again, you know, they spiral up and up, and it's really hard to kind of bring them down and for them to kind of contain their emotion. And, you know, at certain ages, you know, it's our job as adults to kind of teach that self-soothing and to help that self-regulation. And as children get older, if they've been able to do that successfully, they can start taking on some of that self-soothing and regulation themselves. But play can be key in helping with that too. We'll learn how to interact with others through play, so we can be rehearsing events, we can be testing things through play. You know, it's often a safe way to do that, and it's a really important way to express ourselves and a chance to develop creatively as well. And I think, you know, we all need that kind of creative input and that chance to express ourselves. And, you know, probably now more than ever in lockdown, where so many of the things that we enjoy, hobbies and sports and, you know, all the different ways we used to socialize have been so minimized, you know, we feel that kind of that pressure, you know, of not having that usual stimulation, of not being able to express and develop ourselves creatively in the ways that we used to. So, and that's just really important for children too, in terms of their development. So although play is really important, and it is, you know, it's innate in us, that need to play. It doesn't mean it comes easily, you know. So, you know, like walking, you know, it's natural to most of us, you know, if we've not been born with a disability that kind of impedes or slows the progress of our ability to walk, you know. So, you know, we can use, you know, we can use play then, you know, to actually help children who have struggled, you know, they maybe not had the chance to play. I've met lots of children in the past, you know, who as babies and as children basically spent most of the day in a car seat or a pram plonked in front of a TV, you know, until they were obviously taken into foster or adoptive care. So, you know, they've missed out on a lot of those opportunities to play in the very early days. You know, some children might struggle with play because it can be emotionally revealing. So you can imagine if you've got an anxious or a disorganized attachment, you know, play could feel quite exposing, quite threatening potentially, because, you know, as we're playing, we're often expressing our thoughts and feelings and emotions, and it could be anxiety provoking. So again, if you think of those children who have been parented, you know, and developed an ambivalent parenting style, you know, how do they play, you know, when they're unsure of the needs of the other to try and make them happy? Because for them, you know, nothing's really about fulfilling their needs. It's always about having to make the other person happy. So in play, that can be quite provoking. Some children may have sensory overload. So some elements of play, you know, if you think about arts and crafts or very physical play, you know, could be, you know, quite overwhelming for a child who's very sensitive with sensory kind of experience, or, you know, if they've had like physical or sexual abuse, that again can be quite difficult. And some children, you know, can have difficulties distinguishing between fantasy and reality. You know, so again, you know, often the lines of fantasy and reality are also blurred in play when children are playing together. So again, that can be quite kind of confusing with children. So children might have those barriers to play, but it doesn't mean those challenges can't be overcome. And that's really one of the things Yoni and I are aiming to do in our training, is to teach people how to kind of help their children to overcome those barriers. And our real main focus in this training is to think about how play can develop relationships. So you know, so often we kind of use, as adults, we use words and we're asking children how they feel or why they did that, and often children don't have the words, or they don't know why they do that. There's sometimes children do stuff because it's very unconscious. They just don't realize why they've acted in a certain way, or they don't understand the emotion, they don't understand, or they can't give it a name. So you know, and that kind of puts barriers up. But the beauty of play is that it transcends language, you know, and it creates a safe space for a child to be. You know, it has to be done in a you know, a certain way to kind of create that kind of sense of safety. You know, but through play we can develop really strong relationships with our children. You know, and it can help us to support the building of secure attachments. And it's because that's done in relationship with another. You know, it can be fun, it can be playful, it can create sensitive reactions. So, you know, when you're playing with your children and you're playing with them in the way that we suggest in the relationship-based play course, you know, it's about how we respond and help the child to feel heard and listened to. So, you know, I can't tell you how powerful that is for a child. And in all my time as a therapist, for all the things I did, you know, it was the thing that I think was always the most powerful for the children was that sense of feeling heard. You know, and especially for children who, you know, have maybe come from very chaotic kind of family backgrounds and have gone through a system where maybe their voice wasn't heard as strongly or as clearly as it should. For you as an adult to go and to to play and interact and create that safe space, and to actually hear your child is one of the most precious and valuable things you can give your child. And you know, that's where in therapy, that's where a lot of the kind of progress it actually occurs, in that being heard. You know, it allows for self-expression. You know, children can kind of feel safe, you know, and there can be different things, and it can be about fantasy. It doesn't always have to be about real stuff. And you know, it also allows children to kind of rehearse events, to master negotiation skills. You know, so there's a lot in that, you know, and when you think about how we can then develop relationships, you know, so play can be, you know, such a powerful tool for that. You know, we can have like a lot of theory, you know, but actually kind of getting down with the children and playing with them can be just incredibly powerful. So I hope that is like, it's a real whistle stop tour. if you get the chance to listen to anything else Yoni and I have done, you know that I like talking about play, and I can kind of do this about play for several hours. But this is just like a bit of a whistle stop tour. I'm going to pass on to Yoni so she can just kind of talk a bit more, because I've taken the space quite a lot there. But hopefully that is kind of useful, and a bit, I would hope that's like thought-provoking for you, you know, and you know, maybe we can continue this conversation further.
Yeah, thank you, Keeley. I think one of the things that I always think when we talk about the course, and the fact that you could invest as little as, say, 20 minutes over 3 times in the week, and spend that child-guided play, and that actually could have an enormous impact on your relationship with your child. And sometimes I think people probably might think we're actually exaggerating, or not, or creating this situation where an hour could make such a difference. But actually it does, because I think, you know, one of the things that I'm so passionate about is that I know that now my children are older, and there are things that I wish I'd known about. And this is one of the major things that I wish I'd known about, really, because I think you get very embroiled in the day-to-day life of a family. And sometimes it's really, you don't really think about how little time you have one-to-one with your children. And I think even when we were doing activities together, there weren't always activities that perhaps they guided, or that they felt that they had control over. And that's just day-to-day life. And it's such a small thing, potentially, to do with the expertise that we talk about in the course, that can make a big difference. And so just to give you a little brief summary of how the course looks, and then really happy to take any questions about, you know, to either of us about the course, or anything general about play. So the relationship-based play is led by both Keeley and myself. There's 8 training modules in total. Sessions are delivered online, and each session will include about 30 or 40 minutes of actual training, and excuse me, a 15-minute question and answer session. And what we're also going to do is people who come on the course will have the opportunity to sign up for some online peer support sessions. You'll receive a workbook and support, and each session will have a little debrief about how the exercises and the time's gone with each of the students. And you will be expected to commit to 2 or 3 20 or 30-minute play sessions a week at the later stages of the course. But it's really going to be an informal, hopefully really enjoyable time to spend thinking about play, and also having an opportunity to get to know other adopters, ourselves, and build sort of confidence in your ability to play, use and develop new skills to support your relationship with the children. And also for those who are currently just going through assessments, perhaps, some of that documentation would really help sharing with your adoption or matching panel, as evidence of your commitment, really, to willingness to build your life around the child's needs, to recognise the importance of self-development, and to increase your confidence generally. So just if people are interested in hearing more about what we're offering, then the best place to go is either the website diversityadopt.com, or I've got a link which I'll give to Jo to send out through her channels, but it's bit.ly, which is bit.ly/3 ideas power of play, and that will give you information about 3 ideas that Keeley's put together that you can use to build your relationship through play, and also you'll get information about some of the courses that we are providing and the relationship-based play, which hopefully, and just to say that the courses over the 8 sessions, the whole course, plus all the group support, is £350 for that. I don't think we're going to do it that cost again, because we really want to get people in and enjoying the course, but I suspect, you know, it will go up in due course. So I'd love to have any questions or thoughts that you might have in the chat. Would be good.
Thank you very much, guys. We've got questions popping in already.
Oh, brilliant.
As I frantically plan how I'm going to play with my child tomorrow to avoid them becoming a serial killer.
No pressure there.
No pressure at all.
We've just had a request. Can you share the address for the course again, please? I'll just pop it in the chat and then people can take it down, Yoni, if that suits.
Yeah, that would be great. So it's bit.ly, which is bit.ly /3 ideas.
Excuse me, sorry, the number 3 or the...
Yeah, sorry, it's the number 3 and then ideas with an S.
Yeah.
Power of play. And you might need the HTTPS in front of that, but yeah, that should get you through.
Perfect. Yeah, it's so interesting what you say about, which is my problem, is that when you're in the realm of, you know, housework and sorting the sandwiches out and doing the reading, and play is sort of the first thing to get shelved, really, isn't it? When you've got the what feel like more sort of pressing, urgent things to do with your spare half hour or whatever, and actually you need to sort of train yourself out of that mindset, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think culturally, you know, families have different attitudes towards play, and some countries, you know, where if you think about the hierarchy of need, perhaps they're not, they're too busy thinking about sort of where the next meal's coming from to actually have any space to do any play, and so it culturally becomes something that is maybe not in the mainstream of some families. I'm thinking of my partner comes from West Africa, and play is really not very much of a thing in families, or seen as important, sadly. You know, obviously that's changing, and I don't want to stereotype, but that's certainly things that some families experience. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Just got another question in the chat. Do you offer courses for professionals? We've got someone who's training as a social worker at the moment.
Yeah, we would. I mean, I think the courses are open to professionals. Also, I have a Facebook group which is free, and we've been doing some lives in that for a number of months. That's called Ambitious Adopters, and so that course, if people join that in, and if you just Google it within Facebook, you should find it, or my name, and you can link me, and I'll link you to the course. And there's quite a lot of free lives that we've done around play, around attachment, things like that. And we're building up a library all the time. Yeah.
Super. I've got a question. My 7-year-old loves to do one-to-one play and is super imaginative and will be the lead, but the 8-year-old in the family doesn't seem to know how to play. She only follows her sister's lead and can't seem to start on her own. Any quick tips to start them off? Is that the kind of thing the course might help with?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, isn't it? I wonder if in the family dynamic, whether the older child had to be the adult, so she didn't, or he didn't kind of get the same chance to kind of play. But yeah, I would kind of hope, if you kind of feel like, it's lovely, isn't it, that like the younger child can play, but if you feel that the older child in the family is struggling to play, absolutely this course would help. Because maybe there's that child just needs a bit of that kind of one-to-one time, and to kind of just to kind of have a safe space with an adult to kind of learn how to play it and find their own style. And like, if they're mimicking, then they need to just find their own style of play. And this course is very much about, within that, developing a relationship. It's about strengthening them themselves too. So absolutely the course would help with that.
Lovely, thank you. How does the approach differ from Theraplay?
Theraplay is very much, I've done a little bit of training in it, so I'm not an expert, but the training I did in Theraplay, it's very much, you start with the Marshak intervention scale, so you're assessing what the child's needs are, and then there's different categories of play, and then you're following a structure there to kind of support the child, and play therapy is a wonderful thing. Where we differ is our style is more based around free play, so it's about child-led play, it's about kind of going with the flow, it's about kind of using active listening skills, and thinking about how you respond back to the child. So they kind of differ in that way, that whereas therapies are much more much more of a like assessment and structure around it, ours is very much just about kind of being free, and I think it suits more just that kind of that kind of day-to-day life. You can fit this play in 2 or 3 times a week, where you kind of find a moment where you think, what, I'm just going to leave the pots for a minute. I mean, any excuse to leave the pots, right? But and you can kind of fit it in. It doesn't have to be like a very structured time. And I think that's where we differ from Theraplay.
Lovely, thank you. What is, sorry, another question popped up. What is the oldest age you can use this with? So this member fears they might have missed out on some of these opportunities for play in the past.
Mm-hmm. So I think, I've certainly used play. Well, when I used to use play therapy, I used to like work with 15-year-olds, and they were and they were in residential care, they were absconding at night, probably doing things they shouldn't do, but they would come to play therapy sessions, and then again I worked with some other people slightly older, 19. They were different. They were the different scenario. They were young adults with like very complex disabilities, but again, you know, they responded really well to the play. So I would say, you know, you can still, although our kind of focus, I guess, is more around kind of like primary age children, well, nursery to primary age children, probably up to like kind of you know, about 11, 12, you could still use it beyond that. You just got to be more creative and think of different ways of how they were engaged. And Yoni did an excellent job, because earlier in the year we did a 3-day play challenge, and Yoni still managed to engage her own daughter, who was almost 18.
Oh, good.
Play. You know, so I think it's just, you know, it's about creativity, isn't it? And just, you know, finding what your children need, and of course all at different developmental and emotional levels as well. You know, so you can, you know, you might have like a very streetwise 7-year-old, or you might have like a very immature 13-year-old. So we didn't really want to kind of limit it so much to kind of age, but more probably about like ability and where they were developmentally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Another person, when I try one-to-one play with her daughter, they quickly revert to controlling behaviours. So the daughter will tell her where to sit and what to do, which doesn't feel comfortable.
Well, and you know what, actually, you know, what we're kind of looking at actually is about child-led play. But I think, you know, what we would, you know, well, no, what we will achieve in that is about kind of teaching how to kind of do that in a way that feels comfortable for both people, the adult and the child, you know, and exploring maybe some of the reasons why, you know, when the child does that, why it feels kind of uncomfortable to kind of be in that position. But you know, that this play this course might actually suit a child like that, because it is child-led, but it's about doing it, so it's about relationship and not just about, you know, dominance. It's about kind of playing cooperatively and equally together.
Perfect. And Yoni, I've just had a request for the Facebook page. It's Ambitious Adopters. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I'll just pop that in the chat so people can see that. I think we've covered all the questions. I'll just double check.
Oh,
yeah.
Another one.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
one.
Too late. So the 1 and a 2-year-old, can you do this with 2 children together as the children are too young to play independently? Yeah, that's a tricky set of ages.
I mean, I guess you could, but I think your challenge there is, you know, in this playing to aim to develop the relationship, it really does benefit from just being kind of one-to-one. So, you know, if it's possible for one child to be with another adult, you know, and being cared for, maybe they're having a nice playtime together, not necessarily like a relationship-based play session, you know, well, you can just give the focus to the other child, especially when they're 1 and 2, you know, and they're like my daughter's nearly 2, you know, and they're like wee tornadoes on. It's quite hard to keep the focus, and if there's 2 of them, you know, that's a heck of a lot of plate spinning. So I would just say, you know, if someone else can look after one, well, the other adult kind of focuses on like the relationship-based play. That's where you would kind of get the most benefit from it.
Yeah, and to that member, I've been there and just get through the day. Well done.
Yeah.
Could you, another question, could you recap what the main themes are covered in the training? So I think you did mention it earlier, but if either of you mind just repeating that.
Yeah. Well, do you want me to do that one, or?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. So at first we'll look at just generally around play and the importance of play. So we'll just go a bit deeper than what we've kind of spoken about this evening. And then I wanted to, in the next stage of the course, then set a context of play, you know, for the child who has had a life that's punctuated by loss and grief, and they've been on this journey to be in adoptive care. And how play can be different, and I look at a particular model there to kind of support that. And what I want to say is, you know, there's glimmers of theory, right? But actually, this course is actually like very practical, you know, and just kind of a very thought-provoking course. So after we've kind of explored that, we're actually going to look to about our own confidence as adults in play, because we might not have had great play experiences ourselves, or we might be a bit shy and we don't like, you know, acting the fool. Or, you know, we might feel emotionally exposed and play some of the stuff, you know, our kids ask us to do, you know, especially if you venture into role play, you know,
Which
kind
they
of
love.
normally kind of puts a shiver down most people's spine. So it's about kind of feeling confident with that. It's also about giving parents the tools to feel safe with play. So in the past, I've taught similar kind of courses to residential care workers, and it actually put the fear in them, like, oh my gosh, you know, what if we start playing and I open a can of worms, or, you know, they become really aggressive in the play, you know, how will I handle that? So we look at that as well, and how to kind of manage that. And then, you know, then we kind of start thinking about how we set up these play sessions. You know, how do we actively listen? How do we respond to the children without opening huge cans of worms? You know, and then in the very final session, we'll kind of all come together and kind of reflect on what the course has been like, kind of maybe iron out some stuff that people are still not sure on. So it's a very practical course. We'll have interactive elements in it as well, but it should really be a course where people come out just kind of feel more knowledgeable about play, not necessarily a theoretical way, but they've just got a better sense and understanding of it. And they've also got like tools that they can then just use for the years to come with their children.
Brilliant, super, thank you. Someone asking, is setting up a play scene or set of toys out a good way to start and then let them lead the play?
I mean, yeah, you can do this in lots of different ways, but I think, you know, one of the most important things is that you're going to like mark out a period of time. So you might not say at 2 o'clock today, you know, we're going to do this, but you might invite them to say, come, why don't we get, you know, this box of toys out, you know, so they know it's a different kind of playtime. But, you know, because I think you need to kind of like put a kind of boundary around it. You know, the question kind of suggests, and it's not a wrong way of playing, but, you know, that you'd have the toys out and then gently just kind of suggest that the child might want to play it, you know, and that's fine, and it has its own merits too, but the way we're teaching is just you know, has a little bit more of a structure in it.
Yeah, perfect. We've got yeah, and are there any free courses on play that you offer? I think you mentioned some Facebook Lives that you've got.
Yeah, they're either in, you can join the group, or if you prefer not to, actually you can go on, I've got a very small YouTube channel which has all copies of all of the lives that we've done so far. So there's stuff around non-verbal communication, play, and attachment, a whole range of different topics that we've covered. So you're very welcome to have a look at that, and that's Yoni Ejo within YouTube.
Lovely, thank you. And this member, we have a lot of one-to-one play with our child and have had even more over lockdown. Could you give some concrete examples of ways to interact with play to build relationship? For example, the child has started off the play with being a firefighter, answering a call and putting out a fire. They've got a helmet on, they've converted the sofa into a fire engine and the siren is on. What would you do at this point? Bill, I think the question is not, you know, how would you tailor this play to develop the relationship between them?
I think it's not necessarily kind of trying to shape the actual play, because I would say just, I mean, not the kind of play my son would do. Yeah, he's got fire engines and stuff too. But I think it's about kind of going with the flow with that and allowing the child to take the lead with that. So it's like, right, okay, we're in the fire engine, you know, what we're going to do, what's our emergency today, you know, and kind of following the lead and allowing them to do that. You know, we're not trying to teach you to be therapists, because I think, one, it takes years of training, but two, you need to have that very clear kind of role as a parent, and you don't want to start trying to become the therapist as well. You know, we're just trying to give you something that kind of helps to kind of forge a greater relationship. But in that instance, I'd just be like, absolutely, just rolling along with that child's play, but following their lead. you know, and kind of, you know, what should we do now, you know, or you know, what should we do now? Should I go, you know, should I go and turn on the hose and things like that, and just let them follow it? And you know, it's that, isn't it, that helps, it makes the child think, God, you know, this adult's playing with me, and they must be like interested in me, you know.
Yeah.
And it's those bits that kind of help to form their relationship, isn't it? Or you know, they're actually listening to me and doing the bits that I say, you know. It really empowers a child, and again, that's where, you know, the relationship is formed in there.
Yeah, great for your self-esteem as well.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely. I think we have all the questions answered. So, a bit too soon. What do you do with a child that does not know how to play or has not had any play?
Okay, so I think we actually spoke about this one, didn't we, Yoni, in another live session? But for children who've not had any experience with play, or they just don't know how to play, my guidance there would be just to start really small. So just to, you're going to have to model it a bit yourself. And I don't mean that means you're going to have to put the fireman's hat on and, and try, but, you know, just start, you know, just being playful or thinking playfully or using language playfully. So I think the example I used in that was, we recently had a coat hook that fell off the wall. And I actually thought it looked a bit like a diplodocus, you know. So I was like, you know, I thought, oh, look at this coat. No, it looks like a diplodocus. You know, and I just played with it a little bit, you know. Or you go out and you're looking at clouds, and you can, you know, notice that the cloud looks like a dog or something, you know, and just kind of break them in really slowly, and just, you got to model that kind of playfulness yourself, and show that it's not scary and it's not overwhelming. Just go gently with it. Is like a best place to start with children like that, or start with very kind of I don't say formal, but, you know, things like jigsaws and stuff, you know, where it's, you know, there's no rules per se, you know, there's quite a lot of structure around it, but it's just a way you can just be kind of relaxing together and kind of doing something cooperatively together. It can be good places to start.
Yeah, lovely, perfect. Okay, thank you. Lots of comments saying thank you guys, and really appreciating the ideas, and also the affirmation that people are doing the right thing and they're going in the right direction. So that's really encouraging for people. And thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's been really interesting.
I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it's lovely to meet you both, and thanks to hear all your input, and thanks to all the members. We've had lots of people here tonight with really good questions. And like I said, lots of them commenting on how interesting they found it.